Hey guys, this is Ant bringing you another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial. In this one I'll be showing you how to create a door which is controlled by a separate event happening. So I'm going to use a sort of Silent Hill PT or a Allison Road scenario where the player would approach a door, try to unlock the door or go through it, but it can't be opened until something else has happened in the game. So I'm going to quickly demonstrate that now. So you go up to the door, press it, it opens. Player steps into the room. Door closes behind them. Try to go up to the door to open it, but it's locked. Go to the other side, that's locked as well. Now if you keep your eyes open, you'll see that the light will flash on and off, indicating that the event has passed. Give it a few seconds, and there we go. Door opens on itself, and the player is able to control it. So we'll get into it then. I'll show you the blueprints on how to do this sort of system. Okay, the first thing I'm going to create is I want an actor to basically be the event. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the content browser window, right click in it, choose blueprint class, and I'm going to select actor. I'm just going to call that an event. Go into the event, and I'm going to add two components. The first thing I'm going to add is a point light, and I'm just going to call that indicator. The next one I'm going to add is a box collision. And if you've been following the previous tutorials in the series, I call this collision as standard. Hit compile. Now what I want to do is I want this to basically act as the thing which the player steps into, and it links into the doors and changes what state, or if they can be interacted with or not. So drop that into there, and then I'm going to scale it up. So move that around. And then if I go back in there, I need to select the indicator light. I'm just going to increase the intensity to 10,000, and I'm going to give it a red colour. It doesn't matter about what colour you use, as long as I'm just using this for demonstration, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Hit compile, and then pretty much you've got your actor, which will trigger the two doors to be open, which will link with the two doors that will be created for this particular scenario. Okay, now that we've done the components for the event, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the door blueprint. Now if you follow the previous tutorials and go into it, you'll see that we have an interactive door which the player interacts with, presses E, and it opens and closes it. But we want this one to do something different. We want it so that when the player uses it once, the player gets locked in, so this will be the entrance to the sort of puzzle that I'm creating. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to minimize that. And I'm going to duplicate this one. I'm going to call that entrance 1. Duplicate it again. Door entrance. Beg your pardon. I'm going to call that door exit. Now, for some reason, when you duplicate blueprints, it deletes all the components. So just quickly going to add the static mesh back in. So call that door, and we're going to add the box collision again. So obviously, I'm going to use the standard mesh. So I'm going to use the external door one. I'm just going to alter the collision. so that it covers the door again. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect at all. It's just so that you know the player can. It triggers it enough so the player can interact with it. Hit compile, and what I'll do is I'll start going through the event graph for this. So what we need to do now is we need to set it so that there's different conditions for this door. So you can see the press E and it'll interact. The first thing we need to do is we're going to add another branch here. So if you hold B, left click, put a branch in, and I'm just going to disconnect that node for the second. Now, secondly, we need to create another variable. So in this case, I'm going to call this one shut, and it's going to be a boolean. Hit compile, and then I'm going to drag that in as a getter. Connect that there. Now the other thing I need to do is once this door has been used once and it's gone through, the event started, I want it so that I know that the door can't be used. So I'm going to use a simple sound that I imported, and I'm going to call that, that's door slam, but it sounds like someone's trying to force open a door. So all you do is import it into your content browser, drag it in, you'll see there it's add audio components. Okay, so we've got our audio component in, so I'm just going to select these, and I'm just going to maximise that as well, so we've got a bit more space. I'm going to drag that into false. Now for the true, on the branch I'm going to drag out, and I'm going to use another flow control called do once. And pretty much what do once does, it does exactly what it says on the tin. That event will fire once, and then it won't happen again. It'll basically stop. So once you've done that, it reaches the end, and then what I'm going to do is drag my variable in, and I want to set that to false. So hit compile, minimize that a second. So next thing we're going to do is a quick test of this door entrance that we've just created. So I'm going to place it into the world, and I'm going to put it in the roughly where the doorway is, and I'm just going to hit play. And let's say you press E, and it opens. Try to use it again, and you notice that it plays the locked in noise, but that'll come into play a bit later on. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to move on to the door exit. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our door exit. Now because we duplicated it, for some reason it's removed the components, so I'm just going to add them quickly. So static mesh and box collision. Okay, I'm just going to go into where I put my static mesh object, so load it into that, and I'm going to go into my collision again. Fortunately I've got to do this, but it's no big deal, I'll just scale it out so this roughly covers it, and then I'm going to just scale it a little bit more. And then I'm going to let's hit compile a second. Now we have all the functionality here. We basically need to do the same thing as we did with the first one, the door entrance, which is create another variable. So I'm going to call that again shot with a question mark, and from there I'm going to just Control W, create another node there, and then for the default value I want that to be false, so it starts off false. So go into here, put that as a getter, here that is true. Now instead of having it at the beginning, I want to have the do once at the end, so just type in do once, drag that out into that, and then grab that in as a set, and then set it to false. So that should be the functionality sorted out. So we're just going to have a quick test, compile that, go into door exit 1, again I'm going to just drag it in the world here. There we go. Hit play seconds, open that door. There you go, it doesn't open. So go back into the blueprints and I want to set it so that again it plays a sound when to show that it's still, you know, the door's locked. So all you're going to do again is get your audio components. Just move these out of the way, make it a bit tidier. And then we're just going to drag it into there. So it hits compile, play. So I'm going to open that door. And there you go. So you go to that one, it's locked. So next part, I'm going to basically show you how to create the events to tie in with this trigger in the middle of the room with the red light. Okay, so what I want to happen is I want the player to enter the room and step into this trigger box with the light. And when he does, the door behind him will essentially close behind him and lock behind him. And while the event plays, which will be indicated by the light flashing on and off. So as soon as it comes in, light flashes on and off, and back on again, and the door closes behind him. There's a slight delay, and then once the event's happened again, it will go off and then back on again, and then the door in front of him will basically unlock and open. So first thing we need to do is we need to go back into our door entrance, and we need to create a custom event for that. So if I maximise that, I'm going to right click and I'm going to type custom event. I just want to keep it simple, event begins. Nothing too fancy, hit compile, and I'm just going to tie that into the reverse. As like I say, it plays once the player's pressed E, it opens the door, and then if you press Z again, usually it would close the door, but in this case I want that to be triggered by the event, which is the trigger box. So hit compile there, and that's ready. So next go into door exit 1, and again we're going to create a custom event that can be called from the event actor, and I'm going to call that event finished. It doesn't really matter about the naming standards, you can call it whatever you want, but I just find it easy. Event begin, event finished. What I'm going to do is I want to have it that when the event's finished, it ties straight into the play nodes of the timeline, and it basically says, yep, I've finished my event, the door can now open. Hit compile, and next we're going to go into events. So what we need to do now is we need to drag in a collision, beg your pardon, select a collision, add events, begin overlap, and just maximise the screen for you so you can see the nodes better. Next I'm going to drag out from this, and I'm going to use another do once. The reason why I use this is because I only want this to happen once when the player steps into the room, and it doesn't happen again. So you basically get your do once node, and next I'm going to create two variables, and I'm going to call them the door exit and the door entrance. So go into your variable type and type in, or actually just look in your search. So mine it's door exit underscore 1, which is here. There we go. And I'm going to choose that. Pick exit. I'm going to make that into an array, and I'm going to make that public as well. So the next variable, again add another one, and I'm going to call that pick entrance. Variable type, and this time it's going to be door. So in this case it's door underscore entrance 1, which is here. select that, and again it's another reference. Hit compile. Make that public. So once you've done that, you're going to drag your entrance in first. Obviously it's logical, the entrance happens before the exit, so drag it in as a getter and type in for each loop, and then I'm going to plug that in here. Now what will happen is this for each loop will basically bond into that door entrance 1. So I want to call the event begins from door entrance 1. So drag it from array elements and then type in door. Oh, beg your pardon, event begins. Let's look at the name. My bad. So forget the event begins. Quickly hit compile. Now I want it to happen so that when the door closes, when the player enters the collision box and it goes into the loop and it picks the door, it closes it. I want it to toggle the light, which is the indicator, which I called the light. So I'm going to drag in an indicator and I'm going to toggle the visibility. I'm going to select both of them and I'm going to drag them in here. So the event begins, it switches the light off and then it quickly switches it back on again. Also it won't be noticeable, so I'm going to put a second delay. So hit compile, and that's the first part of the thing done. So if I hit minimize and select my actor, you'll now notice that there's a pick entrance and there's a pick exit. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an element and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to choose the entrance 1, which is here. So eyedropper tool, and you'll notice it drops straight into the array. Okay, so I'm just going to give that a quick test. Right, see what's happened there is it's firing it off, but it's the collisions are overlapping, unfortunately, so when the mesh is touching that, it basically thinks, hang on. So here's what we do. We'll go into our events, and just while we're messing around with it, we'll just go into our collision. And we're just going to scale it down a little bit so that it doesn't interfere with any of the doorways. Hit compile, and we'll test it again. So there you go. Go in. There's no interference with collisions. Player walks into the room. Door closes behind them. Attempts to use the door. Can't. So essentially that's the first part of the puzzle. So next thing we're going to do is, again, we're still working in the events, so go back into it, go into your event graph, and then what we're going to do is I want it so the light switch is on and off, but there's going to be a slight delay in between that door basically shut behind you and the light flashing, and then the door in front of you opening and able to be used. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to drag another delay, and I'm going to make that at least 20 seconds, and then I'm going to get our pick exit as a getter. Drag off that for each loop. And if you remember, array elements contains whatever functions linked to that. In this case it's the custom event finished. Drag into that. So what I can do is, rather than creating the code from scratch, I'm going to copy these nodes here, and I'm just going to jig it around a bit, so hit compile. There we go. Doesn't look very tidy at the moment, but it'll do. So, as we did before, we've got our event selected. We need to pick our exit. So what you do is, again, add elements, use the eyedropper tool, and select your door, which in this case is door exit 1. So we'll give that a quick test. So, you've opened the door, you've walked into the room, door's closed behind you, you're locked in. Now what should happen is, as soon as the 20 seconds are passed, that red light should flash on and off again, off and on rather, and then the door in front of us should be able to be opened. And hey presto. So, essentially there what we've done is I've created something where you can literally use another actor to bind into another door event. Now what I was going to have is, I'll show you how to make it so that you can make the door interactive again. So we want to restore the functionality of the door so that it plays the original timeline here. So it's a simple check. All you do is you go into your door exit and you set that to true there, hit compile, and then if you go, we'll just do the sequence again. Closes the door, player's trapped in the room, can't go anywhere, can't escape. Wait for the light to flash off and on. It should happen momentarily. There you go. Door opens again, and there you go. It's restored the functionality of that door by just checking these sets, because the do once is linked into that particular boolean. Have a look in the blueprints. I'll show you what I mean there. So the door sorts off as closed automatically, but because that shut variable is set to false to begin with, and by default it will basically play the locked door audio file. However, once the event actor has fired the message to the exit to say, yep, play this, it'll run through the timeline and it'll fire a message to basically update its location, but it also fires across the node as well to the do once to set that to true. And basically, unless something else changes, that will always set to true. It will fire through the nodes to the branch, which basically determines this function here, and it will just play the timeline as normal. Okay guys, thank you for watching my tutorial series. I hope you find them useful, and stay tuned for more tutorials. Thank you.